Alright, so now all we have to do is we need to write a little bit of code. It only takes like 5 lines to say whenever you click this button, go to this activity. So hop over in your apples.java file and we need to import two quick things. Import Android. Did I spell import right? Oh, I did for once actually. Content.intent, and that's so you can actually use intents. And of course, import Android.view.view. Tighten this up a little bit, and of course, remember, since all we did is we created this onClick attribute on the button in the XML file, we don't need to add any listener at all. We can just jump right down under onCreate and public void onClick. So again, this is the method that's going to be called whenever the user clicks the button. Simple enough, easy weasy cheesy. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is, actually let me type this first. So intent I new intent this bacon class. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is we need to create an instance of the intent class. And this is just the way that Android switches between activities. So in order to do that, it's just like creating anything before, but the only parameter we have to look at is this is the activity that you want to launch. Of course, we only have one other one, the bacon class, so simple enough. So pretty much just set up an intent that pretty much says this is the activity we want to launch. Simple enough. And now the only other line of code is to launch it. And the method to do that is start activity, and this launches an activity and now says, okay, well, what one do you want to launch? Well, we only made one, and it points to the bacon class, so just pass I in right there. So how easy is that? Now, if my emulator's, nope, not ready yet, so I'm going to wait a second. And actually, while that's booting up, I noticed that there's one more thing that I forgot, and that is we need to throw view through this onClick. Alright, now let me go ahead and run this, and here we are. So of course our apples activity is the first one that launches, and when I click go to bacon, hopefully, sweet, it goes to that bacon activity. And of course, if you ever want to go back and do the same thing, make a bacon, go back to apples, it's the same exact technique. I mean, I don't want to waste your guys' time and showing you guys the same thing over and over again, but what I do want to show you now is something else, and that is, what if we want to take a piece of data from the apples activity, and whenever we switch to the bacon activity, we want to send that data along. So what would be a real life example of this? Say that you had a messenger app, and of course all of your friends were in a list, and you also had another activity where you could write someone a message. Well, what you wanted to happen is you wanted to click on one of your friends, maybe their profile picture, and then it would say, okay, you're writing this friend a message. Or if you clicked on another friend, you would write that friend a message. So what you would need to do is you would actually need to pass some data along from one activity to another. And to accomplish this, it's actually really easy. So what I'm going to do is, if you go back to your apples activity right here, add one, let me get rid of this. Alright, so add just a plain text field right here, drag it anywhere on the screen, and I'm just going to set the width of this to like 250 dp so the user has something to type in, and we'll just run this example real quick. Well, first of all, let me give this an ID. Alright, so I'll name this apples input, and we'll say that the user can type something in here, I don't know, maybe like a name of their friends or something, and what we're going to do is we're going to take that data and we're going to send it along to bacon, and then we'll just print out whatever they typed right here. So again, a real quick example, but it'll teach you the basics of a very important concept. So again, make sure you have an input so we can get some data from the user and name it apples input. So now hop back over to your apples.java class and import android.widget.editText and that was of course that input field. Alright, so scroll down to on click, and now what we want to do between these two little lines of code is essentially get the text from that input. So final edit text, I'll just name it apples input. Remember, I like naming my Java variables the same as whatever that ID was. So now of course edit text, find v by id, r.id.apples input. So now this is just a reference to that input field. So now what we want to do is actually get the data, or get whatever text they typed into it. So string, I'll just say that, I don't know, it's user message, and set this equal to apples input dot get text dot to string. So that's going to take anything they typed in, convert it to a string, and store it in this user message variable. So now that we got that taken care of, the only other thing we need to do is we need to figure out how we transfer it to Bacon activity. And it's actually really easy. Anytime you have extra information that you want to pass along to another activity, you call the put extra method. Now the put extra method takes any extra information in the form of a key value pair. So the first parameter is, okay, what do you want to call this piece of information? And I'll just name it like apple message. Now the second part, of course, is what information do you want to pass along, and of course the user message. So eventually we're going to say, okay, switch to the Bacon activity, and when you do, pass along the user message, whatever they typed in, and just so they can have the ability to print it out, or whatever they want to do with it, we'll just reference it with the keyword apple message. So pretty sweet. So now that we're passing it along, we need to add the functionality in bacon.java to handle it. Now all bacon.java is going to do is it's going to pretty much take whatever message and set it as the text right here. Simple enough. So let's just go ahead and import android.widgets.textView, because that's the only thing that we need to reference. And of course it's going to allow us to reference that right there. Now the code for this, we can actually just stick on create, because this is a code whenever you create or launch this activity. So the very first thing I need to do is I need to allow this class the ability to accept extra information. And in order to do this, you actually just call bundle, and I'm just going to name it apples data. And the method for this is get intent, get extras. So essentially what you're doing is you're getting any extra information whenever you get launched from somewhere. So this is gonna call the intent, this is the extra information, and any extra information we're just gonna store in apples data. Simple enough. So now what we have to do is actually want to test something first. So we'll say if apples data equals null, in other words there's no data, I don't know, maybe this got launched from another activity, or maybe you don't have any data for a reason, maybe they just didn't type anything in, whatever, then what we want to do is we want to handle it appropriately, and we can just return, because of course you don't want to try to change this text if there is no text to accept. So that takes care of it. Make sure that we never get any errors or anything like that. However, if it gets passed through that test, that must mean that the user gave us some extra information. So the first thing I want to do is just store this in a variable. And what did I name that? Apple message. So I'm going to make a variable called apple message, and of course this is equal to apples data, get string, and the parameter that you need for here is that keyword. So again, this is the keyword, or the key, but it's actually going to be equal to the value, which is whatever they typed in. Like, I love Bucky. That's something that a lot of people are probably going to type in because it's so awesome, and I am the coolest dude in the world. I should just talk for like 10 minutes about how awesome I am. Oh, all right, rambling again. All right, so the next thing I want to do is, of course, just get a reference to this text view and set it equal to our newly formed variable. Simple stuff here. So text view, and I'm in a bacon text, and set this equal to text view. Find view by ID r.id.bacon text. And of course, you guys already know what all this does. Bacon text. If you ever want to change the text on something, you just call the method setText. And of course, remember that Apple message is essentially the string that the user typed in. Simple enough. So now let's go ahead and run this. Alright, now just let me type something randomly like Bucky is awesome. Go to bacon. And check it out. What it did is it took that text and it passed it along, and a pretty cool app. So we got apples to bacon, Bucky is awesome, tomato tomato. So now we pretty much know the basics of intents, not only how to switch, let me get this out of the way, from one activity to another, but we also learn how to pass information along with it. Pretty stinking sweet. So there you go. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys next time.